There was another realization that the Lord had to bring me to, and it was not one that I enjoyed. A lot of people think idolatry is bowing down to statues. A lot of people think idolatry is serving another religion. I used to think that too. But what I started realizing was that idolatry is much more subtle than that. My biggest fear, to be very honest, was taking God's silence as abandonment and falling into idolatry. Not because I wanted another God, but because life has a way of pulling your attention away from the one who sustains you. I was trying to build a future. I was trying to establish a business. I was trying to pay debts. I was trying to become financially stable. I was trying to move from being a borrower to being a lender. I was trying to heal. I was trying to survive. And one day I found myself asking a question that made me uncomfortable. What am I actually building? Because the one who had carried me through everything was not the one receiving most of my attention, the one who had sustained me through rejection, the one who had sustained me through abandonment, the one who had sustained me through betrayal, the one who had delivered me when nobody else could, the one who had given me breath every single day. That was the one I seemed to have the least time for, and I had to confront that honestly. I remember talking to the Lord and saying, "Lord, I am trying to build a life. I am trying to establish myself. I am trying to pay bills. I am trying to get free. I am trying to create stability. I am trying to move forward." But then another question followed. Who am I doing all of this for? Because at the end of the day, the business cannot sustain me. Money cannot sustain me. Success cannot sustain me. Image cannot sustain me. Comfort cannot sustain me. People cannot sustain me. Only God can. That was a hard realization, because my flesh wanted security. My flesh wanted control. My flesh wanted certainty. But the more I walked with God, the more I realized that my flesh does not understand Him. My flesh cannot comprehend Him. My flesh wants things it can see, but the Lord was teaching me to trust the things I could not see. And that forced me to confront another reality. We spend our lives pursuing things. We pursue careers. We pursue relationships. We pursue money. We pursue status. We pursue comfort. And before we know it, all of our energy is consumed by maintaining a life that can disappear in an instant. I started asking myself, when do we spend time with God? When do we actually sit with Him? When do we seek Him? When do we listen? Because by the time most of us finish dealing with life, we are exhausted, we have nothing left, and yet the one who gave us the strength to get through the day is the one receiving the leftovers. That conviction hit me deeply. Not because the things I was pursuing were evil, but because I realized they could never replace Him, and I began to understand that idolatry is not always another religion. Sometimes idolatry is simply giving something else the loyalty that belongs to God. That realization changed me, because I started looking at everything differently. I started looking at the future differently. I started looking at success differently. I started looking at survival differently. I started looking at security differently. And I started asking myself one question over and over again. If all of this disappeared tomorrow, would God still be enough? That was not a comfortable question, but it was an honest one. And as I sat with it, I realized something. The one who had never abandoned me was the one I needed to remain loyal to. Not because I was afraid, not because I was trying to earn something, but because He had already proven Himself faithful. Again, and again, and again. That was the beginning of the Lord teaching me about loyalty. Not loyalty when things are good, not loyalty when prayers are answered, not loyalty when life makes sense, loyalty when nothing makes sense. Loyalty when you're still waiting. Loyalty when you're still hurting. Loyalty when you're still walking through the wilderness, because that is where faith becomes real. And that is where the Lord began teaching me that my heart belonged to Him, not to fear, not to ambition, not to success, not to survival, to Him. And that lesson would prepare me for the next thing He was about to show me.